Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Pod Snipe Celly. My name is Dan Bradley. Alongside me tonight, Joel Fernino. Joel, happy Tuesday, buddy.
Happy Tuesday. How's it going? Sun is shining.
It's sort of shining here. It's
What?
kind of cloudy, but you had absolutely perfect weather today. You sent me a Snapchat earlier, and I mean, at the dream, 72, sunny.
72, sunny, a cloud not really to be seen. The water on the lake is like perfectly blue.
A little
nice
breeze coming off the lake.
Yep. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Little breeze. Things are nice. The football season is impending soon. It's a good time right now. I successfully smuggled like 24 spotted cows out of Wisconsin this weekend, which I just incriminated myself there. If anyone from Wisconsin is watching and actually controls those laws,
I mean, I don't think you're going to get in trouble for carrying it over the state line or anything like that. They just can't sell it outside. You can take it wherever you want after you buy it.
I even bought it at a Woodman's.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Stone Cold Steve Austin's IPA there too, which they don't sell in Illinois either. So it was a very successful smuggle.
Yeah, I need to figure out a way to get some spotted cow relatively soon here. I miss it.
Come over on Saturday.
I have plans. My the in-laws are coming to town.
It's not more important than drinking a spotted cow at my place.
Okay, yeah. Tell that to my fiance's father. See how that goes over.
He can come too.
Well, we have a loaded show coming at you tonight, so let's jump right in here. Want to start by mentioning that World Juniors is underway. We had a fantastic game this afternoon. I don't know if you got to catch any of it, Joel, but these are all on.
I did not. All
on NHL Network. Czechia beat Slovakia 5-4 this afternoon. That was a heck of a game, back and forth the whole way. Czechia outshot Slovakia like 2-1 over the course of the game. It was like 42-16 at one point or something like that.
Jesus.
But Slovakia opportunistic, like they played their hearts out. It was a really good game. And then just checking, actually, that banner, I'm going to take it down for just a sec because we've got a score update already. It is now 3-0 Finland in that game, which, again, on NHL Network right now. About 17 and a half minutes left in the second period, so things well underway there.
Nice.
HP, take your spotted cow, throw it in the trash, and give yourself a real beer like Busch Light.
What?
HP, you're going to get kicked off the show for that kind of mistake.
Kick HP out. Block him.
He's on mute. Go.
How dare you?
That's a 5-minute major.
That is a 5-minute major.
We're going to put you in the box for 5 minutes and then wait for a whistle.
Next thing you're going to tell me is Golden Light is better than Spotted Cow.
I mean, depends if you ask Kirill Kaprizov or not. He's just here for the Golden Lights. I don't know if you know that one.
I do.
Okay, never mind. We get.
I'm actually kidding. Ooh. I don't know, man. We could have just not said that and made him look worse.
We could have, but I'm not going to throw HP under the bus like that. He's
the original P1 of the show. We could throw him anywhere we want.
He was the first guest we had on too.
Exactly.
I think he was the first guest we had.
He was.
It was either him or Luke Morris. It was one of those two.
Do you count guests as filling in for me?
No. So I guess.
So he would be the first
guest host would have been Luke Morris, but then the first
actual guest
with both of us on, would have been HP. So yeah.
To answer your question too, I have not been following the World Juniors. I just know the 5 Blackhawks that are there, or 5 Blackhawks prospects that are there.
Yep. Yeah, should have been 6.
Frank Mazer should have been in there. I don't think USA Hockey knows what the hell they're doing.
I'm so bummed that he didn't make it. I absolutely love Nazar's game. I really thought he was going to make it, and not only that, but be a force, be a factor.
You know how this works more than me. I saw a lot of comments about like it's all right, he'll be on the December lineup.
Yeah, so this is the making up the from 2021 to 22. So when they pushed things back because they had that another COVID surge that shut things down,
they just killed it, and now they're
so they moved it to this summer. So he
got it.
Nazar will 100% be on the December roster. I mean, I can't imagine a world where he's not.
Right.
So I guess I get to a degree if that's part of the reason why he was left off this time around was it's, the U20s from before. So now they'll get him in with the next U20 batch.
If they're going to be fair.
To be fair, yeah, I would 100% think that Nazar makes that roster. And
there's a couple other names in there that I'm excited to see pop up to our roster. Actually, there's really only two I know for well enough. Both USA hockey.
There you go.
Wyatt Kaiser and Landon Slaggert.
Brock Faber, captain for Team USA, Minnesota Gopher and Minnesota Wild prospect. Minnesota just got him in the Kevin Fiala trade too. So
homegrown talent.
Absolutely, that's the best way to do it.
But now,
well, yeah, we'll segue.
I had some homework.
We gave you some homework at the end of last week's show. We talked about putting together the Blackhawks cap casualty roster, and this was something that we've kind of kicked around on the show before, but this was the first time that we really had you put in the work to put together what
is that supposed to mean?
Well, I mean, it's the first time we've said, Joel, we're assigning this to you.
Work.
We've discussed it, but we've never actually been like, Joel, you're doing
Joel,
this
don't sit there and run your mouth for an hour. Do something.
Yeah, so we did have you put together the casualty roster. Now, before we put that up on the screen here, want to ask you, what was your stipulations as you put this roster together? Because there was some nuance to it.
Yes, there's some stipulations that go into it. The main thing is that I went with so I position locked everything. So, some players had moved around from center to wing, maybe the course of their career, whether they were here when they did that or not, or when they left and they did that. They were locked to the majority of what they played while they were on the team, on the Hawks. The biggest thing is this is every player casualty, mostly trades. There's maybe a couple left through free agency in there as well, which is still our choice to not everything from 2010 to now. And all these players on this roster, if this roster now that this roster is built, it's to be assumed that they are all pretty much in their prime and as good as they were, whatever skill level they were when they were on the team.
Okay.
And I can tell you a lot of them were very much in their prime.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's put that up here. Your forwards, Artemi Panarin, Philip Deneau, and Alex DeBrincat.
I mean, that line alone, that was an easy one. I mean, Panarin and DeBrincat are absolutely probably the top three of the most heartbreaking losses since 2010. DeBrincat, we'll talk about this later on in the show, but and I mean, Philip Deneau, even though my stipulation, it's interesting, I put him at the top line center because he is a beast as of now. But with us, he was decent, and it took him a couple of years to finally get into his own. But even looking at him now, come on, he's absolutely our number one line, or our number one center. Big thing too, you notice down the line here, it's pretty not that deep at center.
Yeah, center was kind of. I don't want to say it was an issue for the Hawks, but it was the development of your centers, and I wonder if maybe that's part of why Deneau didn't necessarily catch on right away, as it was almost he was kind of rushed into the lineup because the center depth wasn't necessarily there. And I think about the players that Chicago tended to bring in at the trade deadline, moving some of these pieces out. It was bringing in those centers and trying to acquire that extra depth up the middle, to kind of bolster the roster. Right
now, for anyone who's going to be not watching this but listening to it, I'm just going to go through everything right now. You'll hear the names, and then we'll talk about each line. So as Dan said, first line, Philip Deneau centering Artemi Panarin and Alex DeBrincat. Second forward line, Dave Boland. God, I have his autograph twice actually. Centering Patrick Sharp and Teuvo Teravainen. Oh, I love that. That's like a gritty, scory speed line. Third forward line is Dylan Strome. There's one of the, I believe, two free agent stipulations I threw in there. So Dylan Strome centering Brandon Saad and Minnesota's Ryan Hartman.
Mm-hmm.
I
An interesting
miss that
note here
kid.
too, as well, is that Hartman is on the wing, whereas the last couple of
Mhm.
years in Minnesota, they've kind of moved him to center, and
Exactly.
he's really kind of embraced that role, centering Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello.
Yeah, it goes to show you how mishandled or how much we mishandled him, even though he played well here too. But
Well, in fairness, the Hawks weren't the only team really that mishandled him. He kind of bounced
Nashville
around
as
a
well.
little bit, and it wasn't really until he came to Minnesota and found that role that he could
It's a good
play
point.
that he really took off as well. So it's not just on the Hawks there either that they ran into those issues with his
Thank you.
development. But I mean, you look at how he played the last couple of years, a completely different player
Yeah,
than it before he landed in Minnesota.
easily. And then the fourth forward line, Kirby Doc, centering Andrew Ladd and Andrew Shaw, the Andrew line there. Andrew Ladd was probably one of my most painful losses, and that was just me getting started on the Hawks. That was only about a year in when we win one cup, and Andrew Ladd was one of my like dark horse favorite players of that 2010 Cup run.
And he had kind of a odd career trajectory over the last few years, because he, after leaving Chicago and going to the Winnipeg Jets, and even for a hot second the Atlanta Thrashers while they were still around,
yeah,
kind of a pretty consistent, like 20 goals was kind of the floor, but really big drop off the last couple of years, down to 12 goals.
He became their captain.
Yeah, 12 goals in 17-18, 3 goals in 2018-19, only 4 games at the NHL level in 2019 and 20.
Yeah.
But then got traded to Arizona last year, where he was sent to Arizona basically to get them to the cap floor. 7 goals and 5 assists in 51 games for Andrew Ladd. But you look at where he was at before that, playing at that higher level, being that consistent middle of your lineup, knock some guys around and score 20 goals type of player. I mean, his inclusion on this list definitely needs to be mentioned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He meant so much to that 2010 Cup team too. Like he did so much in the playoffs, so much in the regular season. But and then the forward scratches I did I forgot to mention the stipulation was this had to be a typical 23-man roster. So of the 3 scratches, 2 of them were forwards, and those are Brandon Hagel and Chris Versteeg. Brandon Hagel being a scratch might surprise any Blackhawks fans listening, because I loved that kid, but it's a small sample size, and yes, that he was so good with the Hawks, but when you look up and down that forward lineup, that was the whole thing. He was a top 6 guy on a bad Hawks team, a very not deep 2021, 2022 Blackhawks team. You slot him in to a contending team such as the Lightning, he was a bottom 6 guy, role guy. Obviously, if that's a bottom 6. If Brandon Hagel is going to be in your bottom 6, you're doing pretty damn well. But that was why he ultimately. And then Chris Versteeg was just so much fun. I loved him. he couldn't beat out any of the other forwards here, but I loved that guy.
What is your favorite Andrew Shaw moment, and why is it when he headbutted a puck into the net?
I mean, what's funny is I actually didn't even watch that. I listened to that on the radio. I was driving when the header happened. I actually drove an hour to drop off our friend. We were listening to it on the way during the overtimes, and it lasted so long, as everyone knows of that game. I actually was able to drive the hour back from dropping them off and still get to see Marcus Kruger's game-winning goal that game. But I mean, it's between that or his I Love Shin Pads 2013 Game 1 overtime win against the Bruins in the Cup final. I fucking love shin pads. It's got to be that or the header goal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for me, it's without a doubt the header. That was just too funny to not include and make a mention of.
Arguably the best goal in the NHL to ever be scored. That didn't count.
It's got to be up there.
It's got to be.
There was one way back in, like, I want to say the late 70s or early 80s where because they didn't freeze the pucks properly prior to the game like you're supposed to do, the puck itself hit the post and shattered and split. So half the puck went into the net and half of it trailed off to
That's badass.
the outside. So I mean, it just looks like he just rifled a shot that literally split the puck.
That's amazing.
And no guarantee it would have gone in or out based on how it hit, but part of the puck went into the net and it was completely over the line. So
It's the one time a team ever won 0.5-0. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's get into these defensemen here too, because this is really a pretty loaded group of defensemen. Even looking at it now with where some of these players are at, you did mention all of these players with where they were at when they left Chicago. At that point in their careers, this would be a pretty good defensive group.
Absolutely. So our first defensive pairing, no one is surprised by this, is Duncan Keith and Nicholas Hjalmarsson. Two of the main core of about 7 or 8 players we had throughout the entire dynasty. Easy. Keith just barely made it in. I mean, he was a trade casualty, but it was more recent. Same thing with Hjalmarsson. He was a trade casualty right after the Cups. So, I mean, those two were imperative to the runs, and putting those two on the top line is super easy. Hell, if I were really going to coach this, I would move them around just to have more depth around and everything. But that was a no-brainer. And the second D pairing is another one. Like, remember how I said Andrew Ladd was my second saddest departure of that 2010 team? Well, my first saddest was Dustin Byfuglien and then Nick Leddy. So Dustin Byfuglien and Nick Leddy on the second pairing. Dustin Byfuglien was so much fun to watch. His swag, and he was just a tank that could score. You know, obviously he brought that just as well as Ladd over to the Thrashers/Jets. But you know, obviously he tapered off with injuries and stuff, but that's, you know, a big guy like that's not only trying to score and a defenseman that's playing in front of the net more than on the blue line, but like, I mean, I loved Dustin Byfuglien so much, man. But those top 4 alone are a brick wall with some offensive upside too. And then my third D pairing is, I had to get Adam Boquist in there. I'm still not over losing him. And then Brian Soupy Campbell. Campbell, when he was with us, was so good. Maybe not on the score sheet, but just so good in so many different ways that didn't really show up on the score sheet. Hell, he's an assistant GM now, for the team. So I mean, that was pretty easy. And then obviously Boquist, when he was with us, was all right, but now he's starting to turn into what, you know, we all on the Blackhawks fan side were hoping he would turn into, until Stan Bowman shipped him off like the asshole that he is. Yeah, so that's the D pairing. I mean, I don't know, you know, what are your thoughts on my D pairings other than it's disgustingly disgusting?
About 5-6 years ago, that top 4, it doesn't matter what you do for a forward group. That's a defensive group that can go out and win you a cup. And with Byfuglien only being there for the 2010 Cup with Chicago, but Keith, Hjalmarsson, Leddy making up all 3 of them were there for all 3 Cups, correct? Was Leddy gone before the last one?
Leddy was gone for the last one, so he was there for 10.
Okay.
He was only there for 13. He wasn't there for 10, obviously.
That's right. Well, because he was with the Minnesota Wild and was traded at the trade deadline
for
in 2010.
Cam Barker.
Nick Leddy and Kim Janssen for Cam Barker. The biggest highway robbery trade in Minnesota Wild history. No, I'm not still bitter about it, Joel. Why do you ask?
Hey, at the time, that was Stanley Cup winner Cam Barker that you were getting.
But it wasn't, though, because it was during the season that they won.
Oh, that's true. So
he didn't actually even win the Cup. Came to Minnesota, disappeared, and
I thought it was in the offseason that they traded for him.
Nope, it was at the trade deadline.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I
would argue that is the worst trade in Minnesota Wild history.
I would give you that one, even though Nick Leddy's knee pad is still the cause for probably the most heartbreaking loss in Hawks history, I personally think, but it's not really his fault. He was trying to block the shot.
Well, and Hjalmarsson too. Like, people forget how much that guy just ate pucks, and like the way that he blocked shots throughout Chicago's Cup runs, like it allowed like Keith and Brent Seabrook to be bigger contributing factors offensively. Even Letty too, to a degree. I mean, he threw his body in front of everything, and if he didn't get in the way, you had Corey Crawford back there to stop it. I mean, that was pretty much it. So it's just a very, very good defense group. I would argue the best, if you're looking forwards, defensemen, goaltenders as your three different units for how you put together this roster. I'd be hard pressed not to call the defenseman the best of the group.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, the defense pairing alone here is, well, we'll get to that. Now, also, I threw a defensive scratch in there. All-star MVP John Scott.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it necessarily a cap because he wasn't necessarily getting like a big deal, but he was still somebody that the Hawks had to move to make rosters work. So
yeah, I felt bad for him because he was here for the 2 years in between 10 and 13. He didn't get to win the 10 Cup, and he didn't get to win the 13 or 15 Cup.
I love John Scott. What a beauty of a man.
He was, oh God, his fight against, I think it was Kevin Westgarth on the Kings. Oh my God, that's still one of the most brutal fights I've ever seen, and I still love watching highlights of it to this day. Just literally speed bagging his head into the boards.
John Scott, another former Minnesota Wild player on this list as well.
Yes.
Because once upon a time, the Wild had John Scott and Derek Bugard on roster at the same time.
That's scary.
Yeah. Except they couldn't do anything with the rest of the roster around those guys. So,
Right. And now finally the goalie tandem. So starting goalie, by pretty much nobody's surprise, Robin Lehner. Now, really quick, I got to get this out of the way. Obviously, people are probably going to be like, well, what the hell? Why not Corey Crawford? And also, what the hell? Where's Brent Seabrook? So and also, where the hell is Marian Hossa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the stipulations, so Marian Hossa and Brent Seabrook didn't count because their health kept them from playing. So all they really were contracts at the point that they were both traded. And, Seabrook actually pretty much had said he was going to retire, but didn't officially do it.
That's Tampa Bay Lightning legend Brent Seabrook for you. That's Arizona Coyotes legend Marian Hossa for you.
Hey, exactly. So they did not count. Corey Crawford did not count under my stipulations either because John Scott is an absolute beauty. HP, you are right. No, Corey Crawford didn't count under this because, yes, he wasn't traded for one. He was a free agent signing. The Devils ended up signing him, but then he, due to his health issues, eventually was like, look, if I'm not playing in Chicago, I'm retiring. So he retired. So he didn't count. So Robin Lehner, absolutely, and I guess this is kind of a testament to how good Corey Crawford was from 2010 until he retired, because there wasn't much of a choice for cap casualty goalies, and we had to find a loophole to let Crawford not count. So,
right. Well, and beyond that too, I mean, we talked about how good Chicago's defensive group was. You look at some of the other players that Chicago let go in that stretch, and like Scott Darling. He got shipped off to Carolina and, never non-factor with Carolina, but that's how good Chicago was playing in front of him. In more recent terms, the Philip Grubauer effect to a degree, playing behind an elite defensive group in Colorado, then going to Seattle and getting exposed. That's exactly what it was for Scott Darling as well.
Right.
Ranta, to his credit, I mean,
Ayati Ranta was the backup goalie. I loved that kid.
That's a solid 1A, 1B goaltending tandem that you could pretty much alternate every other game between Lehner and Ranta here and be comfortable for your roster.
Right. And they both have different, play styles too. So it's kind of a nice little diversity, 1A, 1B in a way. But that is my cap casualty roster. That was my homework. I don't want to spend too much time, as much as I could spend the whole hour talking about the Hawks. That is my cap casualty roster. Everyone heard it. I don't think I need to go through it again. But
well, Joel, congratulations! You get an A+ on your homework. So,
woo! C's get degrees. I mean, what?
I was gonna say that's your first A+ since what, middle school? Maybe one or two in high school along the way.
Anyway, next topic.
Moving on here.
Screw you, man. I was on high honors.
Bringing things back to the current season. The off season so far has been delightful. Honestly,
Nuts.
I mean,
Nuts.
we saw
it's been fucking nuts.
the league shaking trade between Calgary and Florida, sending Matthew Tkachuk to the Panthers, Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, and a couple other pieces going back the other way. We saw free agency all over the place and still kind of unresolved. I mean, Nazem Kadri hasn't signed yet, which there's rumors that he may have signed somewhere and they're just not telling the details of it. But
it's interesting.
I don't know what's going on there, but intrigue. Rosters being shaken up. So I asked you earlier today which team do you think has had the best offseason thus far?
Me first?
Yeah, we'll start with you on this one.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find many teams other than the Carolina Hurricanes that have had as successful of an offseason. I mean, dude, the Hurricanes were able to land Brent Burns at a discount too, as well as Max Pacioretty. He was
Pacioretty for free.
Right, exactly. Pacioretty for literally nothing, just hanging out. And I know he had some injuries last year, but he's still Max Pacioretty. And hell, he had some injuries last year that kept him to only, I believe it was about 39 games played last year, but he was still NHL Star of the Month in December. Like, he's still got stuff left in the tank. And Carolina's not sitting here looking towards the future. They are building towards we are going to win a cup. So adding Brent Burns and Max Pacioretty first and foremost, especially not spending that much on them when with regard to assets, hell, with regard to money. I know Brent Burns' contract drop off too. Like, it drops off significantly, like in the final 3 years of that 8-year deal. So like they were able to add those two and also like kind of be phenomenal at managing the cap as they have been for the last few years. So that alone already improves them. Not to mention they got rid of resident douchebag Tony DeAngelo, so that definitely helps from worrying about a locker room cancer or anything like that. I know they signed him. I remember it was just a 1 year, $1 million deal. So obviously his production was very valuable. Obviously,
right.
But
his on ice production last year was pretty good. But
not gonna take that away from him. He's still a douchebag.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty solid choice as well. And I mean, Carolina is going to be scary good next year. I mean, they turned Nino Niederreiter and Tony DeAngelo into Brent Burns and Max Pacioretty. That's a huge upgrade. And I think a lot of, we look at, how good is Florida going to be now that they've got Tkachuk into the lineup? How good is Tampa Bay going to be after playing in 3 straight Stanley Cups, winning 2, and it kind of just the wheels fell off. They were held together by duct tape and vibes by the end of last year. I mean,
what's a vibe?
Vibes.
Oh, you mean literally vibes? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is a vibe?
Duct tape and vibes. That's what they were. That's what they were running on.
That's fair.
Good hopes and dreams.
Good. Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. That's all they were going for. I'm going to go a little bit different direction here and go with a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, and that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. I look at what this team did, first of all, to navigate free agency in such a way that they could bring in Johnny Gaudreau, who hands down the biggest free agent signing in Blue Jackets team history.
Absolutely.
And regardless of what he does from this point forward, in terms of pure raw talent and NHL success and ability, he's a top 5 player, certainly a top 5 forward, maybe top 5 player overall to play in a Columbus Blue Jackets uniform.
Easily.
Major offensive weapon, 100-point player last year. And they were still able to get it done in such a way that they could re-sign Patrick Laine as well. So either you can combine to have Gaudreau and Laine on the same line next year, or you can break those two up and have one like true scorer on each of those lines. That's going to be really nasty to deal with. But then you go beyond that. I thought they had one of the best draft classes for any team in the league this year. Getting David Juracek and Denton Matejchuk in the first round.
I know those names.
Juracek was playing World Juniors today. Was part of the Czech win in the first game, 5-4 win for the Czechs there. Luka Delbel-Baluz in the second round, a guy that I thought might sneak into the first round. Columbus grabbed him at the top of the second, but a guy who really good production in the OHL last year, and really a lot of draft steam there as well. So he might be somebody as well that about 2-3 years we might see him in that Blue Jackets lineup as well. And then I really like a guy they added in the fourth round. You've heard me mention him on the show before, Kirill Dolzhenkov, 18 years old, and he's 6'6", 236. Yeah, it's just going to be a tank in the bottom six forward group, and decent puck skills as well. Like he's not you think 6'6", 236, like he's all muscle and no finesse to his game. But no, he does. Like he's a good but not great skater. But good with the puck on his stick. He'll be able to deke around you in the neutral zone. He'll be able to run you over in the neutral zone, or if you try and meet him at the line. So
you could say a Dustin Byfuglien type.
Almost, but forward. So
right. Well, they moved him to forward at one point, if you remember that.
They did. I think Dolzhenkov, I want to see him make it to the NHL so bad. Like it's tough because he was a fourth round pick. So you kind of you're throwing some darts at that point, but you still think that's somebody who, top 6 AHL, bottom 6 NHL is kind of what you're projecting at that point. So
fourth rounder, you're not going to know for a couple of years, but still.
Right. But some good development along the way as well. I really think he would be a good fit. Not only that, but then they also got Korpisalo on a 1-year deal,
right?
To give Daniil Tarasov 1 more year to develop as the number 1 guy at the AHL level. They've got Elvis under contract for a while, so they've got their starter, but Tarasov to come up and be your 1A, 1B goaltending tandem with Elvis Merzlikins down the road. That's going to be a really good goaltending pipeline in Columbus. I think it's really a masterclass in how they put things together this offseason.
Before you move on to, I forgot to mention with the Hurricanes, I just want you to picture, because you brought up the tandem, just picture that tandem of Brent Burns and Jacob Slavin. I didn't want you to spit out your water.
That's going to be filthy.
That's disgusting.
Slavin is one of the best defensive defensemen in the game. Should be a top 5 Norris candidate every year. He shuts guys down. Absolutely elite in his own end, but doesn't have the offensive upside.
That's where Burns comes in.
And that's exactly where Burns comes in. So he can kind of let Burns, I don't want to say fly the coop a little bit because you don't want him to get too far ahead and involved in the play. But you look at how good of an offensive defenseman Burns is. That is a pairing made in heaven for the Hurricanes. And not only that, but you look at the rest of Carolina's roster as well. Like they have good defensemen as well on that team. So it's not like it's just going to be, the Slavin and Burns show, because then you back that up and you've got guys like Brady Shea or Brett Pesce or Ethan Bear in the mix as well. I want good things for Ethan Bear. He's had some tough luck the last couple seasons. I still want him to continue to be a good player. I think he just signed an extension like in the last couple of days here. Either an extension or like he was an RFA and they got a deal done, something like that. But I thought I saw his name come up too, that he just got a deal done. Carolina's going to be good next year, man. They got to stay healthy, but that can be a really, really good team. And then you're throwing Pacioretty as well into a top 6 that you've already got Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, Andrei Svechnikov.
Mr. Svechnikov.
The greatest.
Mr.
so good.
God, it's so good. The original creator of the Michigan goal. Not really, but in the NHL he did it.
But bringing it to the NHL level,
Yeah.
for sure. This fetch.
Trevor Zegras would like a word.
Two other questions for you here that I want to pick your brain on. Which playoff team from 2022 do you think will miss the playoffs next season?
So I'm going to preface this with because of your choice, I was torn between two teams. They kind of, and ironically, the one I picked ended up actually finishing ahead of the one I didn't pick, barely. But I'll get to exactly why I ultimately leaned towards this team. So I think that's got to be the Dallas Stars. So, and who I'm bringing up is this was between the Dallas Stars and the Nashville Predators. It was between both of them making it, but then missing it next year. So, and I think the biggest reason for me when I was like, all right, it's kind of neck and neck here, but what's kind of the ultimate tipping point for me to pick one over the other? To pick the Stars, because both of them had pretty key free agent signings they needed to lock up, and Nashville got their guy locked up, and they signed Philip Forsberg to an extension.
Mm-hmm.
However, Dallas did not get their guy locked up, and they lost John Klingberg. That is a massive, massive hole to leave on your blue line. Now, I understand Miro Heiskanen is still there, and I know they have some pretty good depth on the blue line, especially with some young defensemen. So, theoretically, they should potentially be able to slot in and fill in that massive hole that Klingberg leaves. But that's the whole key word there, should. They are going to have to step up a lot. And also, I forgot that they have Ryan Suter down there. So he'll be able to help out, and he'll be able to help out with some wisdom. But that actually segues to my next point, why I think this is finally the year they fall off and they don't make it, is that they have an aging core. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, their main core of Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin are not getting any younger. Jamie Benn is 33 as we sit here today. Tyler Seguin is 30 as we sit here today. Jamie Benn had one hell of a depressing season last year on the score sheet, which we're not used to seeing. So I can, last year he played what? What did he play? He played all 82 games for a total of 46 points. That's bad for Jamie Benn's standards.
From what we've come to expect, yeah.
Right. 18 goals and 28 assists. Yeah, for maybe an up-and-comer, not a bad season. For someone like Jamie Benn, who was consistently tossing up, 20, 30 goals, 40 goals in 2015-16, like that's not good enough. The only saving grace he had is his face-off percentage has actually gotten better over the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, in 3 more years of Jamie Benn with a no movement clause at $9.5 million for his cap hit.
That's
you
bad.
Can't have that kind of production.
That's bad
when you're making that kind of money.
Right, exactly. So that aging core, not to mention, look, this window has been, their window with Seguin and Benn is closing, and I think it's closing faster than we think. So realistically, I think this year is the last year. If they don't make the playoffs, then they're going to start blowing some shit up a little bit over there in Dallas. And I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be like this dramatic fall off, but I think what we're going to do, and we're going to talk about this in the third question, there's going to be some teams that are going to end up passing them in the West that end up overtaking them, and they're going to miss.
Yeah, I think another big thing to consider there is Jake Ottinger, restricted free agent. He's going to take over as the number 1 guy, but you've got to have a reliable backup. And even if it's just somebody who's going to play, 25 or so games for you, you got to be able to rely on him for those games. You can't have, if Jake Ottinger is playing 60 some odd games next season, that's going to be tough to even when you get to the playoffs to do anything.
Yeah.
You got to have a decent backup. So Scott Wedgwood is their guy to start the season. But Anton Hudobin, 36, and coming off of hip surgery. Braden Holtby is out the door, and he probably going to retire. Injuries and his play has been kind of up and down the last couple of years. It started off this season really hot, but then he got hurt again.
That's why something tells me that there's going to be a team that brings him in just as a backup. Hey, he's got cup experience. Like,
what if he goes to Washington again?
I mean,
we're back to the Caps,
right? Here's your playoff experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they, mentioning Washington, like they were the team that went out and got Darcy Kemper, but their backup goaltender right now is Charlie Lindgren. So,
right.
I guess you have Zach Vicali as well, who played some.
Where did Samsonov go?
Samsonov went to. Oh, that's a good question.
I should know. He's on my newly acquired fantasy team that you added me to, but
he went to the Leafs.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, he went to the Leafs, and then Vanacek went to the Devils. So
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, so Washington kind of clearing house in the goal.
Hey, I'm interested
HP chiming in with Toronto for us.
Right. Thank you, HP. All right, I'm interested in your pick here because I very much agree with you on your pick, but
yeah, the team that I think that made the playoffs last season that will miss it this upcoming season is the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, and hands down.
Boston is in such a weird spot right now. They fired their coach. They are dealing with a ton of injuries on their roster and to their big players as well.
Right.
Brad Marchand, surgery. He'll be out until at least December, barring any sort of setback there.
Yep.
Charlie McAvoy, surgery.
That's
out
huge.
Until December.
Those two alone make your team already pretty damn mid.
Mm-hmm. And then you add Grzelcyk into the mix. He's coming off surgery as well.
Yeah.
I want to say Zaboral's coming off surgery. Some roster turnover there as well. Boston's in a weird spot. Not to mention, yes, they brought back Patrice Bergeron.
He came back.
A great get and a steal, frankly, contract-wise. $2.5 million for a guy who just won a Selke and played his literal best defensive season of his career.
That's your definition. Season. That's your definition of a hometown deal.
Yeah, at 100%. But even beyond that, David Krejci back. He didn't play in the NHL last season.
Yeah.
But are we going to see a similar type of situation there to what we saw with Tuukka Rask this last season, where spent some time away, came back, realized, man, I'm not cut out for this anymore.
The difference, though, Krejci was playing.
He was playing, but he was playing professionally in Europe.
Right. Rask just wasn't playing.
Yeah. Well, he was recovering from surgery. So,
right, exactly.
Yes, there is a little bit of difference there. But, again, you're expecting two of your top six forwards to be your top two centers at that. Bergeron 37, Krejci 36.
Whew.
What is that going to bring down the stretch as the season wears on? Obviously, Bergeron's still playing at a very high level this year. Do not take this the wrong way. But there's going to be a drop off at some point. Does it happen next year? What does this team look like under a new head coach? Like, that's a big concern here as well. So what is that going to look like?
Yep.
And with, again, how good some of the teams in that division have gotten, especially if they're struggling early on. And I mean, not only that, but you've got David Pastrnak in a contract year as well. If Boston decides they're going to blow this thing up and you move Pasta at the deadline,
they're only going to do that if they are truly.
I mean, they've got to be a ways out of it at that point.
They got to be getting their asses handed to them most of the season for them to really, truly consider moving Pasta at the deadline.
But again, looking at some of these factors, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's something that could come up as a possibility, and certainly would be the biggest trade deadline.
Dan, are the cops coming for you?
There. No, it's the firehouse is block that way.
Did you burn your food again, making it in the oven?
I've been here for the last 45 minutes and counting.
You could have put it in the oven 46 minutes ago.
But you saw. I was here pre-show.
I didn't see shit.
Banners and graphics. You saw me. You know that. But yeah, I think Boston is poised to miss this year, and I think part of the reason is I look at two other teams in that division that are going to give them a run for the money. I look at the way the East is shaping up as a whole.
Yeah,
Boston, I think, at best is wild card 2 next season. Looking at the rest of the teams. And when I asked you earlier which teams that missed the playoffs this last year have the best chance to make it next year, my mind immediately went to the Detroit Red Wings and looking at how they have continued to follow the Shanna plan, or the Yzerman plan, rather. Excuse me. I don't know why I said Shanna plan. That was
Shanna plan.
That was the late '90s. That's I need more coffee, man.
That's all right.
Day.
Also, don't you mean Shanahan?
No, well, that was what the team was called with the late.
Oh, the Shanna plan. Oh, I got you. The Shanna plan. I got you. Okay.
The Shanna plan.
Ah, that's clever.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, with the Red Wings, really a very impressive offseason. Well, in fact, we could have mentioned them as well in the teams that best offseason so far, going out and getting Ville Husso to be your 1A, 1B with Nedeljkovic next year, and probably I would think would be the number one guy going into next season. I look at some of the other pieces that they got in place, having Andrew Kopp, adding David Perron, like that's a huge get for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of playoff experience on the roster to go out and get him. The blue line now with Ben Sherratt, with Oli Mata, Moritz Seider is going to take another step forward next season.
Yeah.
Verana is really coming into his own. Bertuzzi, all these guys, like it is a talented roster that the Red Wings are putting together here. And I think if they can catch on to some of that early season momentum and get Boston kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, that's a team that can make a splash and make the playoffs next season.
No, I totally agree. Plus, I mean, on the backs of their fearless leader, I mean, dude, I love Dylan Larkin. I don't know if you said his name or not.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dylan Larkin.
I thought he's already established enough that
absolutely
it need to be a next step.
Absolutely, but but still, he's like I think he's perfect captain material for one of the younger guys in the league now. Like, I mean, I totally agree with you. If I wouldn't have picked my pick here, I absolutely was going to pick the Red Wings if I didn't lean differently.
Worth mentioning here as well, Dylan Larkin in a contract year as well, and we know how.
Oh boy, how guys I got him on my fantasy team. Let's go.
Up their scoring as well in contract years. Case in point, Nazem Kadri.
Right.
Guys tend to see a bump in scoring in a contract year. So Larkin.
Not to mention, to your point there too about Larkin, like contract year, he also kind of flew under the radar. Still had a damn good year. But one of those, we weren't talking about him as much, maybe because he got masked by plenty of other performances. But the thing is, he's still silently doing his own thing, and he's only getting better. And that's usually when double that with contract year. That's usually when guys are like, oh, yeah, I flew under the radar. Time to fly above the radar this year.
Well, point per game pace last year, 69 points in 71 games. Nice.
Nice.
31 goals, 38 assists. So 30-30 club.
30. Hey, exactly. That's solid.
Yeah, that's
he's an all-arounder.
Right. And you have a team as well that I'm so intrigued to see what this team does next year.
Exactly why I picked them. Who missed this year that will come on, and people are going to make fun of me like that's the easy choice. No, it's not, because it's so crazy. We don't know what they're going to do. Dude, it's the Golden Knights. Maybe I'm being a secondary homer. I've really bought into they are my second team, so maybe I'm being a little bit of a secondary homer. But dude, look, I understand. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it speaks for itself. They missed the playoffs, and that was arguably the biggest shocker of teams that missed the playoffs last year. Did not perform up to snuff, especially down that last stretch. And that's ultimately what led to. What is this laughing at me?
No,
HP?
that's he's not laughing at you. He's laughing at the
okay.
joke we made.
I was like, get out of here, HP. Don't be laughing at my takes.
No, he's not laughing at you. I mean, if he is, HP, by all means, let us know you're laughing at his take.
Everyone knows I love HP, but I love giving him shit more. But anyway, look, the Golden Knights, literally, if you could say you had a cursed year of any team, they could say it. They really did. Like, I get it. They went out, they traded for Jack Eichel, but they have.
Hang on.
Whoa.
HP is laughing at you picking Vegas to make the playoffs.
I take it. You know what? Screw you.
He's a believer in the curse of Jack Eichel. No team with Jack Eichel on it has ever made the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's only been in the league, 7 years now?
7 years.
7? He was on Buffalo his entire career, my friend.
You gotta elevate.
It's Buffalo. It's fucking Buffalo. Buffalo hasn't made the playoffs in how many years?
At least 10.
Right. But because they did once when Ryan Miller was in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, dude, look, I understand they have a lot of ifs. Everyone's got to stay, but when it comes to health, man, like, they were completely screwed last year. Jack Eichel, we understood he wasn't going to be even fully healthy when he finally was able to come back from that surgery. But even still, man, like, Mark Stone was gone the whole time. Pacioretty was injured for most of the season. I know he's gone anyway, but dude, you look at their decor still, like someone like Shea Theodore obviously stands out. And I mean, Jonathan Marchessault still good. William Karlsson still good. They have to figure out a lot of different things, but I think last year was just a fluke. And I think they figure it out. They get Eichel actually fully healthy, with a nice offseason. I don't know, man. I think it was a fluke, and I think they're getting back into the playoffs. And if they don't, then shit needs to change. But I think they get back in.
Right now, they are 5.7 mil over the cap. They've got Shea Theodore on long-term IR. They have 11 forwards and 1 goaltender on their roster right now, along with their 60. They've still got to make some other move here to get a little wiggle room because they are so up against the cap.
I know.
I don't know.
What's going to help too is, look, we kind of know the usual suspects, at least in the Pacific specifically. Calgary, Edmonton, definitely going to be up there. Toss.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say another thing we have to consider as well is Bruce Cassidy, new bench boss
for Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I think that's huge, personally. But no, I mean, and you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, that, I think he can definitely help. Like, look, we know Edmonton and Calgary will be up there. Vancouver's an interesting one. We'll see what they do. I don't think they're going to be that much of a threat. San Jose and Seattle, they're not going to be that good. Seattle maybe might take a step forward, but that's also because you can't really get too much worse than they already were anyway. So
that's fair.
They're not, they've made some moves, they've made some signings, they did well in the draft, but they still maybe got a year or two before they're going to be really, truly a threat. So again, LA too. LA is obviously going to continue taking steps forward.
Yeah, LA might be your division winner next season.
Yeah, they surprised last year, and I think this year they're not going to surprise. They're going to do exactly what we expect them to do and do something similar. Hold on a second. You can go on a rant. I got to answer my phone real fast.
Go for it. Yeah, Vegas, I think on the bubble, while we're at it too, we'll throw a quick scoring update there with World Juniors going on through 2 periods of play. Finland up 4-0 on Latvia at the end of the second period.
No one's surprised by that.
Are you going to stay up and watch the USA game tonight? USA Germany at 10 o'clock. Or I guess 9 o'clock for you.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have the NHL network, so we'll see.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah. Now we got to move on to some fun.
Yes. We threw this out there on Twitter and on our Facebook page as well, which, by the way, if you haven't already followed us on either of those platforms, at Celly on Twitter, and then Celly is the podcast page on Facebook as well. So just look up the name. You'll be sure to find us there. But we opened up the floor to our audience for some would you rather questions. This is one that we haven't done
a little while.
Probably I think maybe February was the last time we
did
some would you rathers on the show. It's been a long time since we had this one.
Yeah, we're gonna try and do this way more consistently, but absolutely consistently throughout the offseason at the very least.
So we're going to start off with HP, who sent in a question that particularly relevant. Would you rather see jersey ads on your favorite team's jerseys or live in Wisconsin? The Minnesota Wild just added their jersey sponsor with Tria on their jerseys for this upcoming season.
I don't think the Hawks have added a jersey one yet. We have a helmet one. We have Bell Tire as the helmet one. But
yep, and the Wild did a helmet sponsor last year. Added a jersey sponsorship for this year. Joel, I'm going to start with you on this one. Would you rather see jersey ads on the Hawks jerseys, or
live in Wisconsin? So when I first saw this come in, at first glance, I was like, HP, what the hell? This is a horrible question. Simply because there's nothing wrong with living in Wisconsin. Spotted Cow, also, well, actually just good beer in general. Cheese. Milwaukee is a damn fun city. And take away the fact that, obviously, I hate the Bucks, the Packers, and the Brewers, being a Cubs, Bears, and Bulls fan. Take out that fact, when you go strictly to hockey, pretty much about 75% of Wisconsin is Blackhawks fans because they don't have a team. The other 25% that are kind of up in the Northwest area are about Wild fans mainly. So and everything's cheaper there. Like, I don't know. I like Wisconsin a lot. I actually considered living there before I bought the condo. But,
HP saying yes, it's a horrible question, but he is heated over jersey ads. So he did say Wisconsin, and then my mother chiming in as well, saying Wisconsin, hands down on that one.
Look, my answer is going to be interesting because I was going to say Wisconsin, but realistically, from the business side of things, dude, the more exposure and the more money that my team gets, and not just my team, but any team. Like, if every team is doing this, the league is gaining more exposure. They're gaining even more revenue, which means higher salary caps. So ultimately, then your team can start really going out and getting some big boys in free agency, and they can start throwing out those $10 million contracts like they're candy. So I honestly am going to go with I would rather see jersey ads on my favorite team's jersey.
12.7 mil in dead cap this season. 14.7 mil in dead cap each of the next 2 seasons. Give me the money, get the cap up. I'll deal with a patch on the jersey.
Yep. Especially if it's a cool brand. Like, it might look cool. Yeah.
Could be. So,
especially like beer. Like, dude, let the Hawks advertise Bud Light or something. Like, that's cool.
Question from Jeremy here, and this one, is going to get me here. Anytime we talk shootout,
this is my favorite would you rather question of the night. He wins.
Anytime we get shootout questions, it's going to get me riled up. Would you rather have shootouts after one overtime period in the playoffs, or in overtime? And I'm taking this to also be overtime in the playoffs. Each team has to sit their top goal scorer for the rest of the game, which could be multiple overtimes.
So basically, would you rather just have a shootout after one overtime period, but in the playoffs? So basically the regular season format, but in the playoffs.
Right, but expanded to the 20-minute 5-on-5 because it is
right. That's fine.
So 20-minute 5-on-5 and then a shootout after that.
Or in overtime, have each team sit their top goal scorer for the rest of the game, which could be, however many overtimes that goes. Dude, this is such a good question. Honestly, because oh my God, this is tough. I mean, I feel like I know what you're going to say. I know your answer, but to me, it's not that easy. You can go ahead with your answer. Everybody knows your answer.
I would rather saw off my left leg with fishing line than let a playoff game be decided by a shootout. Are you kidding me? How is this even a question? Seriously, how are you even taking this long to think about this?
Because
Sit down, your score. No, we're not letting a playoff game be decided by a gimmick like the shootout. Get that out of here.
Listen, in the playoffs, if you're in overtime, you want to, when you're watching the playoffs in general, you want to see the best players playing. Otherwise, who the fuck cares?
The shootout, no, we are not. It's a joke that we're deciding regular season games with the shootout.
No, it's not.
It is a joke that we're doing that. We've got 3-on-3 overtime. Go to that. Get rid of the shootout. We don't even need the shootout at all outside of the All-Star Game skills competition.
Yes, we do.
Which it's still even a joke in the All-Star skills competition.
Okay.
Alex Pietrangelo brings out a marching band and misses the net, and he wins it. Meanwhile, you've got Trevor Zegras putting on a blindfold dodgeball style, and he can't even win in the All-Star game. That's how bad the shootout is, that we still can't even get it right in the All-Star game, which is what it's designed for.
That's not the shootout's fault that the fucking judges decided to go homer and
it doesn't
pick Alex
matter.
Pietrangelo. That's not the
shootout's
fault.
So dumb. We can get rid of it. Do not ever let a playoff game be decided by a shootout. Get it out of here.
Old man Dan has entered the chat. Anyway, I didn't even pick my answer.
It doesn't matter. HP's with me on this one.
Yeah, of course he is. He's your boy.
Also, well, let me show this one on here as well.
Ooh. So HP, I agree with you here. So the Hawks jersey is one of the best in actually it was voted the best in sports. But the thing is I'm not saying I would. All right, by the way, really quick, my pick, regardless of my argument, and I love watching you get angry, I would actually love to see the top goal scorer sit out and see what happens. That's kind of fun. That's really fun. And if anything, you could add to it in like each playoff period that goes by, you sit down the next best goal scorer. So I picked that. That's awesome. Oh God, my mom's watching. Oh, no. Hi, Mom.
I saw that comment come in and I'm going, ooh, I got to put this one up.
Shit. I didn't watch my language this episode. That's a nice picture, by the way. I love that picture. That was seeing Elton John live. Wait a minute. You're supposed to be at work. I'm glad how tough, Jeremy. How tough this question is.
Jeremy, thanks for submitting this question.
Jeremy, if we had prizes for the winner of this each week, you would have won the prize this week.
We're hoping to get that once we get a sponsor here. And one last question. This one not nearly as
we won't have to argue about it for long.
or riling things up. Would you rather vacation at the beach or a cabin in the woods? This question coming in from Alex.
What season is it? It's not a bad point. He didn't specify what's.
I guess that is a factor here. For me, it's cabin all the way.
Oh, interesting.
Without a doubt.
So for
regardless of the time of year. For me, it's cabin.
No, for me, it's absolutely beach. Just something about being on the water, whether you've rented a boat or not or whatever. Like that to me is the definition of vacation when you say the word. So it's okay. You're wrong.
Whatever, man. I like what I like. And now, for me, it's like in a
winter, my answer changes.
Well, yeah, because nobody wants to go to the beach in the winter. But for me, year round, I want to be at a cabin, be out in the woods.
I get it.
That's for me. That's the better way to go. I just enjoy that more. Looking at the time here, we got to get in a quick 2 minutes for roughing. Joel, are you ready to go here?
Oh, I am very ready, and I'm very passionate. But now that I know my mom's watching, I'll have to hold back some language on this.
Reel it back in a little bit.
I am very pissed off about this. So.
Oh, this is going to get interesting here. So let's go ahead and count you in here. 3, 2, 1. You're up.
All right. So the state of Chicago sports as a whole is absolutely 100,000% a dumpster fire. We already know about the Shut up. How many championships has Minnesota won? Anyway,
I'm just saying this has been your 2 minutes for roughing before.
No, I've talked about the Hawks specifically. We've talked about them enough. The only thing I will say is at least Kyle Davidson has the balls to come out and say that we are rebuilding, which softened the blow for some of the moves he made at the trade deadline and during the draft. So that's fine. But then you move on to every other team, and I'm going to include every other team. We look at the Sox. I'm a Cubs fan, but I do still follow the Sox. I have friends that are Sox fans, Jeremy being one of them. The Sox are literally the definition of mid right now. Like, I mean, they have a manager who dozes off in the dugout, which is hilarious. I think he just needs to, eat his rice pudding and get to the nursing home and not be managing Major League Baseball games. But anyway, they were World Series favorites, and that is definitely out of the cards now. Move on to the Cubs. Much worse. They are rebuilding, but they're too damn afraid to say it, and their owner is too damn cheap to start spending even more money. But no, I can build a DraftKings sportsbook and attach it to my fucking stadium. But no, we don't have money to pay the heart and soul of our team, Wilson Contreras, which, by the way, we're going to let him rot in emotional hell during the trade deadline, ultimately to not trade him. Oh, by the way, we're also not in talks with him still about extending him. So, yeah. Then we move to the Bears, and I have 25 seconds left. I'm going to have to go over. The Bears are still, to this day, a joke of a franchise. We saw the breaking news today that Roquan Smith requested a trade because apparently the new regime won't offer him what he's worth. I get it. It's a business, but you sign the guy that you should be building around, and everything that they're doing up there, they are rebuilding, but they're not admitting to rebuilding it. And I guess the only team we really have hope for is the Bulls.
I'm just saying, you've definitely, because I know you did an individual one on the Cubs.
I did.
On 2 Minutes for Roughing. And I feel like you've also done on the Chicago sports scene as a whole.
No,
but the Roquan Smith news, I mean, that's big. He wanted to be a career Bear.
And they still might get a deal done, but from all the reports I'm seeing, and Ian Rappaport is obviously a very credible source, it sounds like what they're offering him is fairly insulting. But like, I mean, I'm excited for Justin Fields. I still think he's going to be phenomenal. God, I knock on wood, please. I will knock on every piece of wood in my vicinity. But it's still like, it's just that organization needs to be sold, and they need to move to Arlington Heights and get out of Soldier Field.
I think that's probably a good place for us to leave off.
Now I'm all heated.
Yep. Got to get you riled up before we go. That is it for tonight's show. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to the comments throughout the show as well. That's probably the most comments we've had on the show in quite a while as well.
Thank you.
So thank you to everybody watching live. Thank you to everybody listening on demand on iTunes and Spotify.
Into the future, look.
Apple Podcasts. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at PodSnipeCelly. We're on Facebook as well under that same moniker. No show next Tuesday, so we will be back on August 23rd for our next show.
With more Would You Rather.
May have some pop-up videos on Twitter in the meantime. We'll kind of see how things go there and see what we can do. But it is the summer. Things are kind of slowing down a little bit, so just kind of stay tuned to things there. In the Green Bets is coming up next on the Sports 2.0 Network, but that is it for tonight's show. He's Joel Fernino. I'm Dan Bradley. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
We'll see ya.